Welcome to this session. So, we were looking at strategy implementation, that is the strategic planning implementation exercise in the last class. So, what we were mentioning was that the focus should be on critical success factors, that is 20% that determine 80% of the results. This is the principle of Pareto. So, where you concentrate on the 20% which should get the maximum attention. What do we mean in this strategic planning implementation exercise by saying should get the maximum attention? That is, the control should be directed towards monitoring meaningful activities and results and should be timely. So, there is no point for a strategic planner to cry over spilt milk, because the market is not really bothered as to what happened in the past. So, the strategic planner should be looking at future. It can be both short term and long term, and when he is looking at this short term and long term future, he must keep his eye open, that is, his eyes and ears should be kept open for what is happening in the present scenario. In other words, the planning manager's job is a highly challenging job, and it requires him to be attentive always, because the markets in India have become highly dynamic. Not only have they become highly dynamic, the competition is almost cutthroat, especially in the electronics and the IT field. So, these controls should help in pinpointing exceptions. Sometimes the strategic planner may like to bypass some things. So, this is what I was giving you, the example of the flanking warfare, and I gave you the example from our Mahabharata, where Arjuna flanks Drona because he is in search of Jayadratha, who killed his son. No point in waging the war with Drona. Drona is not Arjuna's enemy per se, he is his guru. So, there should be controls should help in pinpointing exceptions. There should be emphasis on rewards on meeting or exceeding standards of performance. This is what I was mentioning. So, there is no point in saying that we are a public sector, we cannot reward performance, and this will only demoralize the working force, including the managerial class. Suppose somebody has been able to meet the target, somebody is able to give you good suggestions which are implementable, then you should reward him. So, this question of saying I am in the public sector, I cannot reward you, I can only put stumbling blocks in your road to progress, all that is not going to work in this market scenario, because a good manager will always be able to have opportunities, many opportunities, in fact not one or two. So, many organizations will be willing to take him, and it will only be the public sector, if at all the managers decide to go towards other organizations, who will be the loser. So, given the state of scenario, the market scenario, public sectors should also look at methods of rewarding employees or managers on meeting or exceeding the standards of performance. So, now if you look at what is happening, this is what I just told you also. If how is the scenario in the Indian context? We are more worried about the Indian context. So, if you look at the scenario in the Indian context, more Indian companies are being certified by ISO, International Standards Organization. So, it is, what is the hint? Indian companies are moving beyond ISI to ISO. You are not just looking at Indian Standards Organization, you are looking at International Standards Organization. So, in International Standards Organization, so in ISI, International Indian Standards Institute gives them ISI codes, ISO gives them ISO codes. What will this help the company in? It will help the company in tapping global markets. So, this should help them to launch themselves as global players. So, that is what is required in the present scenario. You find that the present Indian government is exhorting the players, that is both in the IT and the electronic sector, to go global, not to just think of a national player only. They are encouraging them to go global. So, you find many of the smaller companies, not to talk of the majors, also trying to go global. So, in the manufacturing sector itself, much before, one of the smaller companies which was giving very tough competition to HMT in lathe manufacturing, it went global, which HMT was finding it very difficult. So, they were giving all these types of reasons, saying we are a public sector, we are not able to keep our managers and employees. So, suppose they, even if they perform well, exceed the standards of performance, we find it difficult to reward them in the present system, all those types of things. No, does not work like that. So, the markets are not going to look at all these types of alibis. The Indian companies should make use of value chain analysis to develop activity based costing. So, this is something new which our companies have to look at, that is the Indian companies. So, look at the activity with reference to a worker, with reference to a portfolio, with reference to a business unit, with reference to an SBU. How will this activity based costing help? This can help in getting a better understanding of each activity or function's value. In other words, why are we doing this? So, in the present day context, if you really look at it, what is it that you should look for in a company or a service? Suppose it is a service organization, let us say a restaurant service. Now, you should be able to provide the customer with good service at the minimum level. That is, he should say your service was good. When you are going to this 5-star level, the expectation is that your service level always will be above the expectations of the consumer. Let us say a consumer complains to the hotel management or to your reception, to the reception desk at the first stage, that his taps in the bathroom are not functioning properly. I am giving a very simple example. The hotel should be immediately able to attend to this problem. What does it mean? This activity is an important activity to maintain the image of the hotel in the eyes of the consumer. So, a plumbing team should be ready to service this type of exigencies. As soon as these types of complaints are received, the plumbers should attend to this and sort out the problem immediately. Similarly, a problem with respect to your TV in the room, some channel not coming, which the consumer is interested in viewing. How will you sort it out? Suppose the hotel has not subscribed to the channel the consumer wants to see, then how will you sort out the problem? All these issues, suppose in the Indian context, you are going, let us say, from Bangalore to a place in the north where the consumer who is wanting to view some Kannada channels may not get them there because they might not have subscribed. Then how do you cater to the needs of this customer? So, the hotel management should be always having the alternatives. How many days this customer is going to stay in the hotel? Some 2-3 days. So, can we make some provisions for getting some channels of his choice? So, all these types of things. So, I give you a very simple example. So, all these come under your analysis of activities with respect to a product or a service. So, the company should look at activity based costing, whether it is a product or a service or a portfolio or a business unit or a SBU. This can help in getting a better understanding of each activity or function's value. This can also help in outsourcing decisions and embark on benchmarking. So, you should be able to benchmark your hotel. So, this brings me to one of the incidents which happened to a well known hotel chain in the US, a very well known hotel chain, which was supposed to be one of the places of pride to stay in a well known city in the United States. I am not naming the hotel nor the chain. So, this is what was happening. In spite of providing such good amenities, this particular hotel was not experiencing good occupation, that is the occupation ratio or the occupation levels were always low. So, at that point of time the owner of the hotel, a well known person, he was getting almost flummoxed. What is happening? Such good facilities are being provided and I am not able to get good occupancy to meet every business has, as I mentioned to you, always looks at performing above the break even point, then only they can make profits. And here in the case of this particular hotel, he was finding that he was not meeting the costs that was being incurred. So, he wanted to find out why, what is going wrong, or what are the expectations of the customers. So, he disguised himself as a customer and came to his own hotel. So, the staff at the desk, reception desk, saw this new customer to the hotel and they were telling him, instead of speaking about their own hotel, they were telling, why don't you look at the opposite hotel? There was a hotel opposite. So, the facilities may be better there. So, this owner was in a state of shock. In fact, he then grabbed this employee and said, he came out of this disguised look. So, this employee was in a state of shock to see the owner of the hotel. Then this owner asked this employee, tell me, how is the opposite hotel better compared to this hotel? So, in the whole process, the owner came to know that the employees were having grouse about the management with respect to their salaries. That is, the opposite hotel was paying better salaries compared to this hotel. So, that problem was addressed and the occupancy went up. So, which was required for this hotel. Okay. So, this can also help in outsourcing decisions and embark on benchmarking. Embark on benchmarking meaning you should embark on benchmarking with the best in your class. Suppose it is a 5-star hotel, you find out about the other 5-star hotels. Best example can be that of Bangalore only. So many 5-star hotels, each one offering you a range of services. So, if you just compare your Oberoi with West End or Hotel Ashok, you can get an idea of how Oberoi is different compared to Ashok or West End. And this gives the hotel management also, because they are also continuously checking how this hotel is with respect to other hotels. So many hotels have come, you have the Marriott chain also operating, all those types of things. So, in other words, the most important aspect that we are coming into is in the present day context, to have a futuristic outlook, Indian companies should also go in for this activity based costing. They should actively look at outsourcing and embark on benchmarking. So, their services with the best in the class. So, this is what we are looking at. Before we take a few more issues, let us look at this issue of technology management, because now technology is in fact playing havoc with companies. The technology that you thought was current is becoming outdated very fast. Many times you do not know. A well known automotive manufacturer has come out with a wonderful car, an Indian made car. And it compares very favorably with the international models, that is models in the international sector. So, one of the attributes which this car did not have till very recently was this function of hill assist, which this Honda cars and all these other cars have. That is whether it is a Toyota or a Honda, these cars have. This particular brand, this particular model of this well known manufacturer from India did not have this attribute. What was that? That was what is called the hill assist. What is this hill assist? When you are going, when the car is going on a slope, that is a gradient. Suppose you are driving the car, okay, on this hills, say Tirumala or Chamundi hills, and the steepness of this should be negotiated by the car without going backwards. That is this suppose you have to put the brake somewhere, the car should not come in the backward direction, that is reverse, because the slope is very steep at several points. This function is called the hill assist. So, this hill assist function you put you put this attribute in the car, it will not reverse or it will not go backwards even though this slope is very steep. So, this was pointed out, this attribute, the lack of this attribute was pointed out to this well known manufacturer. The models which are coming now from this well known manufacturer, they have this hill assist function also. They say, okay, yes, we recognize that, and we have incorporated the changes, due changes. This is what is required. In other words, this technology, many times people say technology is it driving the market or market is driving the technology. So, earlier we used to think that technology is driving the market. Now, with so many products from so many customers, so many manufacturers, so many players and so many manufacturers, the customers are able to make a considered choice. So, in other words, many times in the present day it looks as though the market is driving the technology. Suppose your product does not have a particular feature, you may get the feed from the market saying that this feature is not available in your product, immediately bring this feature on, that is the attribute. So, the product attribute may be pointed out, the lack of this product attribute may be pointed out to the manufacturer or the company by the market itself. So, this is the type of scenario in the present day. The technology management due to market changes, then this type of technology management, kindly note, is a critical factor for success. So, if you are not able to think on those lines, then you will have a very serious problem. So, companies should think of methodologies to generate maximum return on R&D investment. So, I was in the earlier classes we were looking at saying how do you evaluate this R&D function. In the industry setup. So, this is called the evaluation of applied R&D. Yes, industries also have R&D, but they are not looking at pure R&D, kindly note that. Whereas, in the academia you are looking at pure R&D, you are not generally looking at commercializing your R&D, whereas in the industrial setup company is looking at what are the types of outcomes that are coming out from the R&D activities. How, in other words, how many of these R&D activities are capable of commercialization. By that meaning, can it turn out to be a new product, can it turn out to be a new process, and if it really turns out to be so, what is the type of increased revenues which may be expected from this type of change. What is this whole exercise? Because the company also puts money or on R&D activity. So, you should not always be looking at R&D as a cost center, that is one which keeps on incurring costs, do not bother about returns. No, does not work. In fact, it did not work with respect to a well known organization, is not working also right now also with respect to a well known organization, that is the DRDO in India. So much of investment goes into DRDO for their activity. So, the government is naturally concerned what is the type of new products which have come and whether they are able to be assimilated by the defense forces of the country. So, they must be on par with other manufacturers around the globe. So, many times some if maybe about 1 to 1.5 decades back, this was a grouse which the defense forces were having on DRDO, saying that they could source for better products outside the DRDO. Then what will happen? It will threaten the very existence of the organization. So, DRDO was catering to this defense forces of the country, that is a major chunk goes to that. Now, not only this DRDO is presently catering to our defense, but it is also scouting international markets. So, this was some of the types of exercises with which I was also involved, that is tapping international markets for DRDO without affecting the national security. That is, you should be able to look at international markets, so they can be revenue earners, and the government will also look at it in a more positive manner, because not only the government is investing, the government is also getting revenues. So, if you look at the latest one, so you have the BrahMos missile from DRDO tested. So, these are the types of changes. In other words, this what is the bottom line? The bottom line is, even though it is an R&D investment, companies are looking at how this investment has translated into products, commercializable activities, whether it has translated into new products or new processes, all that types of scenarios. Then innovative approaches from personnel thus becomes essential. So, in other words, this is the present day scenario. You have to be innovative. You can't be just saying that no, I will be only looking at the ambassador car. Ambassador car itself has become extinct from the Indian market. So, you now do not talk about the ambassador car only. Earlier, a few decades back, there was no other car except the Ambassador which was being talked of. So, this is the type of changes that markets can come or can happen in the market when you are having competition. This calls for taking risks on the part of the management. So, in other words, the management should be willing to operate in an entrepreneurial mode. So, no point in keeping on looking for shelters, that is, I will park my products with the government, that is a public sector attitude. So, any government organization should always take the product from a governmental company only, all those types of things. It is not working in the present day context, did not work even for a company like Air India. Even Air India got privatized. So, this is what can happen in the present day context. Top management should impress upon coming out with new products, having customer needs and wants in mind. So, this is the bottom line which the company should do. So, that requires a very thorough environmental scanning. We will continue in the next class. Thank you.